Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Hogsty, your unofficial guide to the 2015 Redskins NFL season. Let's take a look at what happened during the week. Preseason Week 2 wrapped up against the Lions, and even though the Redskins won, it hardly feels like it. The first-team unit was thrashed by the Lions' stout defensive line until Griffin went down with a shoulder injury and concussion symptoms 6 minutes into the second quarter. We'll break down the game for you next. In other injury news, the Redskins will be without special teams captain Adam Hayward after a season-ending ACL tear, adding to our existing special teams woes. Meanwhile, the Redskins may have added some depth at the tight end position with the acquisition of 49ers Derek Carrier. Reports yesterday are that the Skins traded a conditional 5th-round pick for rights to the 4th-year player. We're halfway through the preseason, and this is the Hogsty. Stick with us after the break for the game recap.
It's the Hogsty.
All right, so welcome to the Hogsty. Let's introduce you to the crew of this starship we're taking throughout the season. Co-pilot Kelly Worrall is here with us today, guiding us through the stars with the utmost care and coolness under pressure that you've come to expect. JAG Officer Steve Thomas is here, making sure we don't get sued in this particularly litigious sector of the universe, wouldn't you say, Steve?
Hello, how are you? And it was JAG, not Jack. Just to be clear.
I said JAG.
Judge Advocate General.
Advocate General, yes.
Steve,
I just wanted to make sure you didn't
Don't be
say
such a jackass.
Yeah.
He's a jag.
And Chief Science Officer Robbie Duncan is here. Robbie, are there any intelligent signs of life down at Ashburn today?
I don't know. We will look for more.
Good enough for me. Guys,
Given all she's got, Captain.
Let's jump on that note right into the game recap, and boy, was it an ugly one. Like we said, the final score was 21-17 Redskins, but it didn't feel like that. Can we get right into what happened in this game and why it was so ugly, guys?
Well, let's go ahead and jump right in and talk about Robert Griffin III.
The man, the legend.
All right, so let's see this. Was it all his fault? No. Was it all the offensive line's fault? No. I mean, in my opinion, it was a lack of execution on all fronts. Willie Smith got his ass kicked on one play in particular. The one where the linebacker came free and hit him after he threw the ball was not the O-line's fault. This is a situation where he is the extra guy that can't be blocked because the offensive line and the running back has picked up everything that they can. In this situation, Robert has to get the ball off to the hot route, which was Pierre Garçon, right behind the linebacker as he was blitzing. If he dumped that off, he could have protected himself. Not saying, it's easy to be a backseat quarterback, but, that was the solid read for you to protect yourself and see if the receiver can get the yards to get the first down. You don't have to try to throw over the first down mark. You just get it out of your hands, protect yourself, and let your playmakers make plays. And then
hold on a minute. Wait a minute. The ball he threw was right on Andre Roberts' hands. It would have guaranteed the first down. I think that just shows some toughness on the part of Robert Griffin, because had Andre Roberts not dropped the ball again, we would have definitely had the first down.
Sure.
Yeah. I think it was a good play, and I think it showed a lot of moxie by Griffin.
He was tough. That's for sure.
It does show toughness, and there's no question that Robert Griffin is willing to stand in and take the hit. He's been showing that for the whole time that he's been here, that he's willing to take the hit. Problem is, he gets hurt a lot. And
those were hard hits.
And at some point, you've got to learn, listen, get rid of the football before you get killed. And he's never going to, he's got a Superman complex. He always wants to make the big play. I love the fact that he wants to win. I love the fact that he's a competitor. He wants to get the first down. That's terrific. It's the preseason. This is not the time to be standing in and being a hero. Just get the ball off your hot read, for God's sakes, and live to play another day.
He wasn't being a hero. He wasn't throwing a 60-yard bomb or trying to run an 80-yard touchdown. He threw the ball 5 extra yards to a guy who had a guaranteed first down. That's not a hero complex. It's crazy.
And in doing so, he stuck in the pocket a little longer and took a vicious hit, which he has a tendency to do. And
which he got up from.
Well, by the way, I thought that hit was it. I thought he was done for after that hit. I mean, that is one of the hardest hits I've seen on a quarterback in a
Oh,
long
it was
time.
textbook. It was shoulder right in the chest, and it was textbook.
And a
hit for
quarterback,
sure.
if you're going to be a quarterback, and you know that you've got a history of getting injured, you've got to stop doing that. Just throw the ball to the hot read. It's a blitz. Go to the hot read. The guy was wide open. Why wouldn't you do that?
Yeah.
Or how about let's actually try to win the game?
We did
and
win
let's
the
try
game.
to actually get the first down.
Yeah,
We won the
I
game,
agree.
though.
I mean, I can't criticize him for making that throw because I mean it was on the money. Andre should have caught it, but again, you had this read with Pierre Garçon right there running behind the linebacker that was blitzing. You could have just dumped it off, and Pierre's he's a tough receiver. He could have grinded out
He's an excellent
4
receiver.
yards to get that first down, I think. But
We don't know that. Maybe.
maybe. I mean,
No,
you don't
we
know.
also don't
either.
know that Andre Roberts can catch a football. But what we do know is that Griffin takes too many hits. His sack percentage over the last few years is way high relative to the average NFL quarterback. He gets sacked a lot. Does he have a bad offensive line? Absolutely. But if you go back and look at the numbers, when you look at Cousins playing behind the same offensive line, he doesn't get sacked nearly as much. And the reason is he gets rid of the football and he knows how to use the pocket. And Griffin hangs in there until the very last second and then fires something off.
Cousins is good as getting rid of the ball and putting it right in the hands of the safety.
Yeah, Cousins doesn't throw a very accurate football, unfortunately. I'm not saying he's a great quarterback. I'm not saying he should be our starting quarterback. I'm saying that he has shown that behind our offensive line, you can play football and not take sacks all the time, and Griffin has not shown that.
Well, let's talk about Cousins here in a minute, but let's talk about some of those other hits that Griffin took, because I agree with you that play was not great for Griffin. But let me ask you this, Robbie, being a offensive line expert, how much of this do you really put on Griffin versus the offensive line in this game particularly? I know that one play is one thing, but it seems like the expert consensus is that the offensive line was just abysmal. And I think it was that very first pass play of the game, in fact, where it was I think it was Tyrone Walker just put Brandon Sheriff on skates and blasted him straight back into Griffin. I mean, it seemed like, and you mentioned Willie Smith, it seemed like a lot of really poor play, and he barely had a chance, is what it looked like.
Oh, yeah, for sure. It was really bad play by Sheriff. And he, not just in that play, you can go back and watch, he was getting pushed back a lot that game, even in the run game. But my take on this was, yes, it was bad offensive line play on that play especially. But Robert, I mean, the guy was Brandon Sheriff was coming right in his face. You can see that.
Yeah.
But my thing is, yes, Brandon should have been a lot more stout, should not have been pushed back like that. But, I mean, you can move around in the pocket. I feel like he was just stuck there. I'm not blaming this on Robert. It's not all him. It was a combination of just complete lack of execution, as I said earlier. He could have moved around in the pocket a little bit better. When the guy came up to him to sack him, he spun out the opposite way, where he could have, I think, gone to the right instead. I don't know.
I think that if you're going to play behind a guy, so Brandon Sheriff, first of all, he's a rookie, right? So you're not expecting him to go out there and be Russ Grimm in the preseason of his first year. But the other thing is, Sheriff he's accustomed to playing tackle at the college level. This is the fiercest competition he's ever faced is tackle at the college level, and so he's playing against college defensive ends who are a little smaller. Now he's playing against professional defensive tackles, which is a much larger, much stronger man than anybody he's faced before. So I can see him getting blown up, at least in the beginning before he learns how to set his feet correctly at the guard position and how to try to fight against some people that are significantly bigger than he's used to. He's probably going to get blown up. I think that at some point somebody has to let Robert Griffin know that he might expect some trouble out of that spot.
John Keim, the article he put out right after the game, he had timed all the hits, and there was only one of them that came 3 seconds later. That was the last play. That was everybody agrees is on Robert.
Yeah.
Where the fumble, where he kind of scrambled when he didn't have to. All the rest of them
dropped the ball.
were. Yeah. And all the rest of them came, a couple of them were less than 2. Most of them were like 2.1, 2.1 of them, 2.13. I have a really hard time blaming the quarterback when he's getting hit in 2 seconds. Seriously.
There's something to that. Part of that though, when you're a quarterback, when you're looking at the defense, like he totally didn't recognize the safety blitz on one of those. He just didn't see it. He didn't audible the protection on the slide left where the guy was coming from. He didn't audible to get the running back to stay in for protection. And he also didn't do anything about the guy coming free around the side. He stuck in there and then took the hit.
See, listen to you do your spiel there. It really makes it sound if the person had not watched the highlights or watched the game.
I have watched the highlights.
You'd think that he was. No, I'm not saying you haven't. I'm not saying you haven't.
I'm only talking about the plays that I've watched.
No, Kelly, I'm not saying you haven't. I know you have. I'm saying if you listen to what you said, a person who has not watched the game would think that all this is Robert Griffin's fault. I mean, people who watched the game saw a jailbreak along the offensive line. Willie Smith, it wasn't just the one, Willie Smith was getting pushed back a lot.
Yeah, there was the one play where Willie Smith, this was totally on Willie Smith. He was driven back by Ziggy Ansah right into Robert's lap from his blind side. Robert had no way of knowing that this was coming. That was totally on Willie Smith. That one, that one's no doubt.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
And then there's the other one too, where you see at first glance that Willie Smith was a turnstile trying to get back to the D end on that play. But if you watch it on film, Cooley talked about this on his radio show the other day, breaking it down. I completely agree with this. It looked like it was inside. A squeeze type protection call where the offensive line squeezed to protect the middle of the line of scrimmage because you had the two linebackers walked up right in the A gaps, and they were it was a well designed blitz. It's not. I don't think that was totally on Willie Smith's fault, but it's hard to know what exactly was called without knowing what's going on. But at first glance, it was a protection call that was the wrong protection call.
Well, yeah, he took an inside track immediately. Right as soon as the ball was snapped, he turned inside.
Yeah,
right from the get-go on that play.
Away.
And then it was like, oh shit, and he got back to the defensive end.
There's no question that the offensive line played like crap. That's a given. I think everybody can agree on that. The offensive line played terrible. My thinking, what it reminded me of is the fact that no matter how the offensive line plays over the last 3 years, Robert Griffin doesn't know how to use a pocket. He doesn't know how to read the blitzes. He doesn't know how to adjust things. He gets hit more often than anybody else. I think that sure, this past game, that's a good portion of that is on the O-line. They screwed up, but I sort of feel like even when the O-line doesn't screw up, it's the same result with Robert Griffin, whether they play well or not.
Yeah, I just want to point out too that, and this is really terrifying, the Lions were without Haloti Ngata, who is a Griffin killer, we know already historically, and defensive end Jason Jones. So that was a already sort of hobbled squad that we faced, and we just got demolished. So I think it is undeniable that the offensive line played extremely poorly. But I want to make another point just really quickly about what you just said about Griffin. I think you're right. He has issues in the pocket still, and you can still say he has some issues reading defenses. There are some things I think we've seen some improvement with through the first two preseason games from last year. Those being, look, a big knock on him was he doesn't know how to take drops. A couple times in the preseason already, we've seen him take nice, crisp 3 to 5 step drops, step up at the end of the drop back, and deliver the ball in a timely manner. So I think you've seen two things improve. He's taking better, more crisp drops, and he is stepping up a little bit and getting the ball out quicker. I really think that the release time has improved. It just hasn't showed much because he barely has.
There haven't been too many releases.
Exactly.
He hadn't had too many dropbacks. Look, I mean, we have a running mobile quarterback who in high school and college did not play in a pocket system.
Yeah, he played sandlot.
Didn't play with the playbook. Didn't he played? Yeah, he played. If you watch 7-on-7 football that middle schoolers play, that's what he's been doing his entire career. And I think it's pretty ridiculous for anybody to think that he's going to walk in and all of a sudden become a pocket quarterback. And I also think it's pretty dumb to force him to be a 100% pocket quarterback. I think the head coach, who everybody knows I don't particularly care for, needs to put this guy in motion, moving as much as possible. That is where he's had his success. Get him out of the pocket. And I get why. We're in preseason. We want him to practice in the pocket. I get that. But the guy needs to be on design rollouts. We need to keep running the read option for him. My tact is this, and I'll shut up here in a minute. But I think we need to let Robert be Robert. Okay, he needs to play his style, and if he gets hurt, he gets hurt, and we move on. But I don't think you can continue to force a square peg into a round hole with this guy. Let him be him, because that is why he's good.
So I agree with you. I think that he does do better when the pocket's moving laterally. When he's moving laterally, I think he's also more of a threat to run in those situations. When he's standing back in the pocket, defense doesn't really have to worry about whether or not he's going to run. And in 2002, part of his success was because defenses had to basically assign one of their 11 precious men to making sure that Robert Griffin isn't going to take off and go running with the ball. He hasn't. We haven't seen him do that very much since the knee injury in 2002. We haven't seen the pocket moving laterally very much. We haven't seen. We've been through 2 coaches. This is now his 4th year. I don't know for certain that he can still do that very well. I think that I don't know that he's able to do that on a regular basis. There's some reason why 2 different sets of coaches have not been doing that. Why have they not been doing that? Is it because they don't want to? Is it because they want to protect him? Maybe not. I'm not sure. My other point, and then I'll shut up, is if you trade 3 1s and a 2 for to move up to the number 2 slot to take a guy, you should be. It's hard for me to get excited about. In his 4th year, he's learning how to drop back. This is a guy who was supposed to be the real deal, franchise quarterback, savior of the franchise, all these great things. He's supposed to be this phenomenal acquisition. And 4 years later, we're talking about, hey, he can drop back 3 steps and throw the football. And this is supposed to somehow make me feel better about the situation, and it doesn't.
True.
Yeah, well, I just think he's shown improvement in it. I agree with you that some of the fundamentals haven't been there in the past. But I guess what I'm trying to say is it looks better than it has previously. The 2 different coaching staffs that you mentioned have retained him as the starter, and I think they must be seeing something there that gives them more confidence in him than the other 2 guys, and then that the average fan has.
Well, I'm going to piggyback off of what Steve said. This is preseason after all. Yeah, they're working on this back, working in the pocket, dropping back and passing stuff. But, maybe this is wishful thinking or just speculation, but, we have no idea what the actual playbook will be like this year. I think we can all agree that this is Robert's, do or die year. If it doesn't work, he's gone.
Yeah, this is it. I think we all agree with that.
I think they'd be stupid to not do some type of 2012 style offense, and I think that's really what they're going to do. It would make no sense at all to unless you're trying to get them hurt like they did, just dropping back and doing what they're doing. I think they should be doing a lot more rollouts, a lot more read option, and all the stuff that made him so successful back in 2012.
I think he's going to get hurt.
Yeah, I think if we
Kelly.
turn Robert Griffin into Andy Dalton, we've messed up. Robert Griffin is a different type of player than that, and the smart coaching staff will adapt to allow this guy to be him. And I've been saying it for a year now. If he gets hurt, he gets hurt, and we move on. It's just as simple as that.
Yeah.
You just can't. We should not try to turn this guy into a statuesque pocket passer who diligently does his 5-step drop, makes 3 reads, and throws the ball in 2.2 seconds. That's just not effective use of a guy who is an Olympic sprinter or an almost Olympic sprinter, whatever the heck he is now.
If you believe what Mike
I'd
Shanahan...
love to know what his 40 time is, by
If
the
you
way.
believe Mike Shanahan and what he said during his epic rant...
I don't. Hint, I don't.
Well, so the story from Shanahan, and I haven't heard any stories to counter this. I haven't heard any other explanation for it. But so Shanahan's take on it was that it was Robert Griffin and his camp and his family that didn't want him, being a running quarterback, that didn't want him rolling out, that didn't want him taken off with the football, in the interest of his own career, which is a plausible thing to think, right? The guy took a significant knee injury. It was his second one. He had a concussion. These things. I can totally see a situation where he and his family and his people say, listen, we want this guy to have a long, healthy career. Stop using him, as an option quarterback in this league. He's going to get killed. I want him staying in the pocket. Now, if that's what happened, then that's what it is. If it's not, then it's on the coaches for not using him that way. But I agree with you 100%, Steve. I think, the guys, the reason he was worth all of those draft picks was because of his speed, his athleticism, and his electricity. And you take all those things away and try to make him play in a way that he's never played before, and he sucks, then what have you done? So get him out there, get him run the ball, move him around, and let him be an athlete. And if that works, great. If he gets hurt, he's going to get hurt in the pocket as well. He's just going to get hurt. So let him,
I just like
him,
to hear you.
If it's not a matter of letting him. If he doesn't want to do it, you make him do it.
I just like to hear you say one more time that you agree with me 100%.
You drafted and not some other quarterback.
The weird thing about it all is we've been hearing since the end of the 2012 season that all this stuff about Griffin's family not wanting him to be a mobile quarterback, but everything that we see in every game seems to stand in stark contrast to that. Griffin's instincts still seem to be scramble out and try to run, not even read, your receivers or who's open, but just tuck the ball and take off. We've seen it a couple times in preseason. It seems like his instincts and what we see is he still wants to scramble out and run, but what we hear is that he doesn't. So as is everything with this team, it's just, it makes no sense.
And if that's true, what Shanahan said about the family and him not wanting to do that, in that case, then Shanahan, you're the head coach. Who gives a shit what his family wants or what he wants? He's the player. You're the coach. He's paid to be the quarterback of your team and to do what the coach tells him to do. I mean, run the offense. But the guy who does care is the owner, right? So that if it's true, and there's some evidence that maybe it is. If it's true that Griffin and Snyder are close, and Snyder is siding with Griffin in his camp after on this whole let's keep Griffin healthy train, and Snyder says, listen, Shanahan, you're not gonna play him this way. Then somebody, the answer to that, everybody's, you stick by your principles and you do what you do, and if the coach, the owner won't let you do your job, then you quit, which is basically what he did. You look at the 2013 season, if Snyder's saying you can't use him this way, and then Shanahan's just basically going to blow up the ship and walk out, which is exactly what happened. Then this team's never going to be successful.
That's correct. Yeah, I think we've seen that.
It's never going to be successful. That's the way it's always going to be.
I hear what you're saying about Shanahan, Kelly. My thought on what he said is this. I think it makes him look pathetic. I mean, pathetic. Robbie, you kind of touched on this. For a head coach who's been in the NFL for, 30 years, 35 years, to actually give two poops whatsoever about what a player or what a player's family thinks about anything. Mike Shanahan, if Mike Shanahan wanted Robert Griffin to play a certain way, he can say, I'm the head coach, you're the player, and you do this, and that's the end of it, period.
Yeah,
that is my thought on it. Who cares what Robert Griffin's dad wants?
I mean, that's like high school ball when you have the parent nagging the head coach to put my kid in. My kid's the best player on this team. Why isn't he playing?
Yeah.
I think it makes Mike Shanahan look pathetic.
I think that Shanahan,
and I don't believe him either.
I think that he handled himself about as well as he could during that season, which he didn't want to do. So if the stories are true, and you have a situation where the owner is backing the player, which may well have been the case, and is not allowing, because he works for Dan Snyder, right? Dan Snyder tells him this is what you're going to do. As an employee, that's his job, is to do what the guy is going to. He doesn't think that's the best way to run his football team, though. So if his boss is telling him to do something that he thinks is a mistake, how he handled it was basically, well, I'm going to bench Robert Griffin. I'm going to blow up the ship, and you're going to fire me, and I'm going to walk out of here with some money, and good luck with your team.
Right. Well, let's talk about a couple guys that are still with this team. So we've got to talk about Kirk and Colt. I believe both their performances statistically were hugely better than Griffin's, just statistically speaking, and I think they both finished with quarterback ratings in the 100s, I believe, and Griffin was down at like 50-something. So let's talk about their performances. Maybe start with
my
with
performance
Colt.
was better than Griffin's.
I don't have the quarterback ratings in front of me, but Colt McCoy was 5 for 6 for 80 yards, 13.3 yards per attempt. I think his rating was in the hundreds. Low hundreds. Kirk Cousins, 8 for 12 for 91 yards per attempt, 7.6. I think he was at maybe 91.
Colt McCoy's rating was 158.3, which is pretty fucking impressive, Cousins was
that is the max.
Cousins was 117. Robert Griffin's in comparison was 47.9.
Oh God, it was worse than I thought.
Well, he's got a bad O-line in front of him.
So let's talk about this. So those stats are pretty telling. But I think a lot of fans are falling into that same trap, that same age-old debate. Why don't we just start Kirk Cousins? I mean, clearly Kirk Cousins could get us to the Super Bowl, right? Dirty-dur. I mean, I've heard that so many times the last few days. It's driving me absolutely batshit insane, guys. But talk to me. I mean, am I crazy for thinking this?
Oh, no, you're exactly right. I think these fans are just... I just can't... I can't adequately describe the contempt I feel for that position, okay? I really can't. I'm sorry if that comes out as arrogant, and I don't know any more than you guys do. I'm a fan just like you. But please, for God's sakes, get a grip. We know what Kirk Cousins is. If he wants to run up 117 passer rating against some fourth-string UPS drivers in the fourth quarter, amen. But you know what? We've seen Kirk Cousins play the equivalent of a full season of football now. We know what he is. When things get rough, things are going to go bad for Kirk Cousins, and we know that. I think it's absolute insanity to think that he should be starting for us over Robert Griffin.
I understand the fans who, we go through this every year, right? And it's been this way since the beginning of the National Football League. Your starting quarterback isn't getting the job done. Right, Griffin has 4 wins over the past 2 seasons, something like that.
Well, actually, he's gotten 5, which is 3 more than both Colt and Kirk put together.
Well, sure. He's also have how many more losses has he got than those guys combined?
He is 5-15. He's 5-15. Those guys are 2-10.
2-10. And I believe one of those 5 was the game where he started and got taken out. Somebody else came in and won it for him, right?
Well, he played part of the game, and Cousins played the other part. Assign the win to whoever.
Right.
You
So
want.
at any rate, fact of the matter is, starting quarterback isn't winning football games for us. And whenever that's the situation, you are going to have a contingent of fans who are calling for the backup. And then the preseason doesn't help because in the preseason, the backup is playing against scrubs and looks better. And this, we go through this every single year. How many people wanted Pat White, for God's sakes? The backups look good in the preseason because they're playing against shitty guys who aren't going to end up in the NFL.
Right.
And so we go through this every time. What's making it harder for us is that Kirk Cousins, when he enters a football game, looks like an NFL quarterback. And this is the case in the regular season as well. When he gets into a football game with the ones playing against the ones, he looks like a professional quarterback. He stands in the pocket with confidence. He throws the ball with confidence.
Sad Kirk.
He makes his reads. He moves in the pocket. My God, he knows how to step back three steps before throwing the ball. He does all of these things right. And the problem with Cousins is that he'll throw an interception, and once he throws an interception, he loses it. He turns into my phrase is a quivering puddle of self-hate, and then it compounds, right? Mistakes build on top of mistakes. He gets all screwed up, and then you've got nothing. So if he could find a way past that, I could handle him throwing a pick if he didn't compound that error with more errors further in the game. And I think, honestly, that if he could, get his mind right in that sense, he would be a better option at starting quarterback than Robert Griffin. Because Robert Griffin, Griffin doesn't have that quivering pile of goo. I'm gonna self-hate or he hides it better. He just makes he fucking loses football games.
Robert Griffin has a better arm, a more accurate arm. He has a stronger arm. He's far more athletic. He's a Heisman Trophy winner.
He doesn't know how to play
Kirk
quarterback.
Cousins. He doesn't know how to play quarterback for a coach that shouldn't be his coach. Robert Griffin has been a winner all his life. Kirk Cousins is a journeyman. He's got an average NFL arm. He does not have the mentality for it. I wish we'd never drafted him, number one.
I feel that way about Griffin.
But I think, Griffin is the guy who has franchise potential. Kirk Cousins is the guy who has journeyman potential.
4 years ago, he had franchise potential.
First of all, it was 3 years that we're going into the fourth
3
year.
years
First
ago,
of
he
all,
had franchise. I want to hear what Sean's got to say. What do you got, Sean?
If you want to be mediocre, let's start Kirk Cousins. But let's be mediocre. We've been mediocre for 20 years. Let's continue to be mediocre by all means, and let's start Kirk Cousins for God's sake.
4-12 doesn't even get you to mediocre. We
had 10-6 in a division championship under Robert Griffin.
The one attribute that made him special, which was his
blame Mike Shanahan for putting him in there with a torn ACL.
Blame Mike Shanahan. Doesn't matter. That's the past. We got to let the past be the past. That's done. I'm talking about today. You've got an athletic quarterback.
Well, you can't let the past be the past and ignore the fact that this guy was great, in 2012.
This is not
Robbie, you want to go get a coffee
anymore. We're no longer in 2000. This is 2015, and Robert Griffin is not 2012 Robert Griffin. You can't say leave him in there.
Well, Kirk Cousins is 2012 Kirk Cousins, and he's never going to change.
I'm not saying Kirk. I'm saying if Kirk Cousins was able to get over this shit, he'd be better. He's not, and so he's not better.
If donkeys could fly, we'd have flying donkeys.
That he's not a better quarterback. Robert Griffin is the better quarterback right now because Kirk Cousins is a head case. Robert Griffin, however, is not the potential quarterback that he was in 2012 because he's been tore up. So we can't say Robert Griffin has...
Do you think it matters that he may run a 4.5 instead of a 4.3?
Talk amongst yourselves.
Who cares?
Does not
I'm
have the
overclamped.
same potential he had when we traded for him. He doesn't. He's played terrible. We didn't draft a guy
wait a
who was
minute.
going to play terrible. We drafted a guy with endless potential, with a high ceiling. Now he's not that guy.
Can we stop and remember that he played 2013 on, when he really shouldn't have been playing on his torn ACL. Then he came back in last year, and he's playing, on a dislocated ankle after he came back for not playing for 9 weeks. Can we please give the man a full season first before we condemn this guy and start this guy?
Because he gets hurt. He can't play for a full season. I would love to give him a full season. He can't stay in for a full season.
Why don't we find out?
We've tried several times. He can't do it.
Well, like we said, I think something is going to have to give at the end of this season because if it's bad from Griffin, it's really tough to see him coming back, I think in a lot of ways. At the same time, it seems tough to imagine Kirk Cousins as the entrenched starter for this team. So I think it's safe to say if the season goes poorly, for whatever reason, we're looking at somebody else potentially under center next year. Potentially. But I just want to say this. Comparing the two in very general terms, it's fascinating to have them both on this team because they are polar opposite players, I think, in a critical way. Kirk Cousins is going to depend on good play call, good strategy to get players in the right position so he can deliver a pass. What he does is he telegraphs his plays, and he has a tendency to throw into double coverage. He is not necessarily great, I don't think. I mean, whatever the stats are, 14 games, 19 interceptions. He's not great about protecting the ball and making necessarily great decisions. Griffin, on the other hand, totally opposite of that. He is all improvisation, or has been historically. It seems like he's all about doing his own thing on plays, which is the opposite of Kirk Cousins. So it's just really interesting to see them both on this team and both struggle in their own ways. Like I said, well, this is the year, as we have said, because if it doesn't go well, it's new things are going to happen.
Enough is enough. Well, here I'm going to conclude my thoughts on this by saying this. Ask yourself, what kind of offense do you want to run? Do you want to run a normal, traditional pro-style drop-back offense that doesn't have a lot of wrinkles to it? It's nothing special. You just manage the game, run the ball, get the ball downfield, get it to your playmakers? Or do you want to run a more dynamic, hard to predict offense and that's what you'd have in Robert in that style, and in the other style you have Kirk Cousins. And I personally want the more dynamic one that's hard to scheme for and hard to get prepared for, and the one that you really have no idea what's going to happen. and that's what we have with Robert if it's run, But again, it comes down to, do they actually want to call that, and will Robert accept that? I don't understand why he feels he has to be this drop back quarterback and only be that, because look at Russell Wilson. He drops back here and there, but he makes plays with his feet, and he won a Super Bowl doing it. There's no shame in that.
People forget that the Seahawks. People forget that the Seahawks stole our offense in 2012 and handed it to Russell Wilson.
So did the 49ers with Colin Kaepernick. They did the same thing. But here's what I want us to do is what I think we're doing. And I think it's the direction that Scott McCloughan appears to be going, which is I want us to build the offensive line. So we spent a very high draft pick on a talented offensive lineman. Yes, he got blowed up a little bit. He's still learning how to play guard. I'm okay with that. We'll let that go. I want us to build an offensive line, and then I want us to put a quarterback behind it, because I don't think that we have that quarterback on the roster right now.
Yeah, well, I don't either. I don't. I think we're all having doubts at this point. Maybe we should talk a little bit about the rest of the offense. What do you guys think? I thought we saw some nice play, a nice play by Matt Jones. We saw some other good plays. What do we have to call out here?
Bomb.
You want the stats before you go, Robbie? Matt Jones, 8 carries, 44 yards, 5.5 average. Alfred Morris, 3 for 10 yards, 3 attempts, 10 yards, 3.3 yard average. Trey Williams was 10 attempts, 52 yards for a 5.2 average. And then Mac Brown had a few carries, 7 attempts, 18 yards.
Okay, so the starting offensive line didn't do any favors in the pass game, but they also didn't do themselves any favors in the run game. They had one good run that Alfred pretty much did on his own, getting that 11-yard gain. Go back and watch the very first play. There was a wide open hole that Alfred had to run through. It was right through Morgan Moses, right underneath him. But Morgan Moses got destroyed by Ziggy Ansah. He blew right past him, went right around him, and got the tackle for like a 2-yard gain, if that. And if the running game, if they got the running game going a little bit more, it could have been a different story. But that's shoulda, coulda, woulda at this point. I also think with Matt Jones doing what he's doing, it's not just some star in the preseason. I think we got something special in this kid. He's a big back, but he can cut. He can really make guys miss for as big as he is.
Matt Jones ran at a 7.6 yards per carry clip in the first preseason game. Alfred Morris was 5.3 yards, and Chris Thompson was 5.6 yards. So I think that definitely this offensive line that we're putting together has got some problems in pass protection, but it seems like so far they're putting up some pretty good numbers in the running game, kind of across the board. Williams had 5.2 yards a carry. Chris Thompson had 7.4 in this last game. We are consistently getting good yardage in the running game.
But Robbie was right.
Back.
If you watch the first string offense in the running game, wasn't all that impressive. I know the play you were talking about, Robbie, with Alfred was the long run. Looked like he was carrying about 3 guys along with him. They did not get good results against the Lions ones in the run game. They didn't.
And I'm really just gonna attribute this to just having a bad game without Trent Williams, especially. Because last week the offensive line looked good. They had good protection. They were moving the ball. So I'm just going to say this was a bad game, and hopefully they'll bounce back next week. Defense, I thought, was doing pretty well. Guys weren't tackling one-on-one, but the rest of the defense was right there to clean them up after the first guy missed. I thought a lot of guys were doing a good job of getting to the football. I wasn't able to watch the game,
being out of market, not having television, all this stuff. I'm set for the regular season, but I haven't worked out the preseason. So. But here's what I want to get from you guys. I want to get your take on the safety position. So we've got Deshaun Goldson. We've got Duke Iheanacho, although I don't think that he played, did he?
Not.
Yeah, he did.
Oh, he did.
He started.
Yeah.
So how are those guys holding up so far? How's our new look safety doing with the ones?
Nacho almost had a big tackle for a loss. It was one of the first plays of the defensive series. He was right there in the backfield, met the running back, and just sort of fell off of it. But everybody else was there to clean it up. Seems to be really good in the run support. The safeties still haven't really been tested much in coverage. A lot of this stuff that's being thrown against them is like stuff over the middle against the linebackers or on the sideline against the corners. So I can't judge them on their pass.
We haven't seen
right
any
now.
tight ends running
But
free over the
nice.
middle, though, either.
Yeah.
No, that's a start. That's a good thing. But I think they're definitely good run support safeties, but just have not been tested yet in the pass.
Yeah, my impression defensively overall was that I think they really swarmed to I'm talking about the starters here. They really swarmed to the ball very well. It seemed like on every stop there were 3 or 4 Redskins right around the ball. We continue to have the tackling problems. We saw that from the corners. They just could not get the back down in one hit. Several times.
I was going to make that point too. Yep.
Yeah, Detroit did move the ball on them on the first drive, and scored that field goal. So it wasn't all sunshine and roses, but I think at this point, clearly, the defense is probably a little bit, ahead of where the offense is.
That's actually a big statement because the one big thing that was happening over we made a lot of changes here over this past offseason, and most of them were welcomed. We were all very happy about the acquisition of Peña and Pot Roast and Callahan and all these guys. The one thing that everybody seemed very upset and concerned about was the acquisition of Joe Barry, defensive coordinator. That was, nobody wanted that guy. We wanted basically anybody but him. So if the defense seems to be ahead of the offense and the defense is coming together well, that's it turns out maybe that might have been an okay hire.
Well, I don't know if the defense is coming together well. I mean, we played the Cleveland Browns and we had the Lions without Calvin Johnson.
Sure, the jury
so
is definitely still out on the
expectations a little
defense.
bit.
We can't say after 2 preseason games that the Joe Barry's the coordinator. He's no Buddy Ryan, but apparently the defense hasn't been a complete Swiss cheese. Colander or whatever metaphor you prefer for a defense that can't hold water.
Well, speaking of Paya, I think he's been a very solid addition. You watch him; he's really good at getting penetration and setting up guys for a good pass rush lane. He's so strong too. Like he pushes guys back into the backfield and causes disruption there. Jason Hatcher was doing well last night. He almost had a sack. Both of him and Paya both were right there near him. But I also think, Knighton. He hasn't really. I haven't really seen much from him. I don't know. Maybe it's just he's doing a support role and not really a playmaking type. But
he did push the pile a couple times. He did him that much.
Yeah, he pushes. He's a big body and pushes the pile, but I mean, he hasn't really.
I think that things are going to be a little different as well once we get Kerrigan and Junior Gillette on the field.
Should be interesting.
You're talking about the offensive line is going to have
Very
a lot more to think
about
about than they do right now. So I think right now they can kind of focus a little bit on guys like Paya and Knighton without having to worry too damn much about guys like Trent Murphy and Smith.
Yeah, and if the practice reports are anything to go off of, Gillette, since he's been practicing with the full team and getting live reps, he's been playing like a man. Yeah.
He's the only guy that beat Trent Williams from the reports.
Yeah. He also,
have you watched any Saints film on him, Robbie Gillette?
I've watched a few. There was one rep particularly where he made Joe Thomas look silly. He just dipped right underneath him, ran the loop right around him, and got the sack. It was pretty nice. He's a very technical pass rusher. He's not he's not one that relies on his athletic ability and just if it first move doesn't work, then that's that. He has counter moves to his original move too.
Yeah. Anybody else on defense that has been standing out to you guys through the first preseason games? I wanted to call out Jackson Jeffcoat. It seems like he's coming up with some sacks out of nowhere. I believe he's been in there mostly with the second stringers, but I mean he's played very well.
Yeah, Jackson Jeffcoat and number 45 Houston Bates, both last night and last week too, were getting a lot of reps with the ones.
Yeah, Houston
here
Bates
and
has
there.
been a standout.
He got a sack, didn't he?
Houston Bates he had a sack on Thursday, and he had 2 sacks last week. He's that kind of guy that he's been producing with every chance he's got. I mean, really, he's a Gabe Miller 2.0. I mean, he may make the roster, but it's tough when we got other tough competitions between like the running backs, for example, the deep guys at receiver like Rashard Ross that's making a strong case for himself. But yeah, I've liked a lot what I've seen from Bates. He's very good with his hands in the pass rush. He's beaten guys at the point of attack with his hands and getting by guys.
I'd like to give a
cool.
golf clap to Quentin Dunbar. Who's Quentin Dunbar.
Too,
for the fans that don't remember this, Quentin Dunbar was a wide receiver, undrafted rookie free agent, and they have converted him to corner. And he's very, very athletic, and he has made a couple plays. He had a couple good pass defenses the other night, and he looks like he belongs. And
he almost had a pick. I mean, it was right there. I think he's going to be a good practice squad guy. He won't make the team just because he's too raw at the moment, but I think he'll make the practice squad and be a good developmental player to build off of.
It seems
eventually.
like it's undeniable we have more depth now. I don't think there's a lot of guys, a lot of positions that aren't necessarily we don't have huge standouts at, but it seems like as opposed to years past, we've got a lot more guys that can at least compete, for reps, which is a great thing to be able to say.
Yeah, and I'd like to throw a bone to Martrell Spate the other night. He had 5 tackles. Looked like he was all over the place. For a significant portion of the game, he played well. And I know that's your boy, Robbie. I know you think a lot of him.
I love his passion. You see him every play where he's in the mix. He's getting up and he's just pumped up and clapping his hands and really getting into it. I like the passion he plays with.
Well, and I'll tell you what, now that Adam Hayward is out for the season again, which is just awful, I wonder if Spate's going to have a bigger role with the team than he otherwise would have.
Well, that is a great question because let's pivot real quick to some special teams play. So obviously we've had some injuries going on. We've picked up this new tight end Carrier from the 49ers, and I believe he has been a major special teams contributor in the past with his other 2 teams. I believe he played for, besides the 49ers, I think he was also on the Raiders for a year.
Yeah, Carrier.
He was practice squad guy before that.
You want to hear about Carrier? He's, first of all, he's 25 years old. He is from Belvoir College, which I think is Division III, right, Robbie?
Yeah, he's Division III.
The Raiders practice squad, Eagles practice squad, 49ers for 2 years, and now with the Redskins.
He's also a converted wide receiver to tight end, by the way.
Or college wide receiver. His career stats: 9 receptions, 105
Niles
yards.
Paul was a converted wide receiver as well, so I guess he's replacing Niles Paul.
Yeah, so let's talk about some of the vacancies here. That brings up a great point. So obviously losing Hayward is a problem. He's the special teams captain, but I believe that opens. I heard rumors somewhere that Darrell Young would be kind of stepping up into that role as the special teams captain.
Yeah, Darrell Young's been on special teams his whole career too, and he's always been a good one. But I guess now, he's definitely got to be. Someone's got to be the leader. He seems
Doesn't
like
everybody
the
feel
one.
so bad for Adam Hayward?
Yeah.
He had the same thing happen last year. Different injury, but he was out for 3/4 of the season. Now it happens again. I feel bad for the guy. I thought he was going to be a quality contributor to the team this year.
Yeah. And is he on a 2-year contract? Does anybody know?
Yeah. I don't remember his contract.
Yeah, I can't remember either. But
I'd like to
this
point out
throws a wrinkle.
that I also don't remember.
If Alex was here, he'd be keeping us on our game. Yeah, I mean, this is a huge wrinkle for him. It sucks, but it sucks worse for us on an already sort of depleted unit to have this issue come up. Anything else you guys want to call out about special teams play? I mean, we've seen some.
Well, yeah, Andre Roberts had a great punt return.
Right. Which we are not used to seeing.
He had,
from him.
a 34, 35,
Yeah, he did.
35-yard punt return. He went upfield. He made some couple good moves. So that's progress. We still haven't seen Jamison Crowder in the return game. It sure looks like Andre Roberts has the job right now.
Kai Forbath didn't miss either of his extra point attempts.
Beautiful.
There you go.
Hooray.
I think he's a lock.
What about my man Tress? What are we thinking about his play? I think he's been nailing it.
He averaged 51 yards on 4 punts.
He-
one of them inside the 20, no touchbacks. So and he, So I don't think anybody can second guess Tress Way.
He had that one awesome punt. They were like back in their own red zone,
yards.
And he bombed that thing past I think to the other 30-yard line. I believe it was or near it.
It was incredible.
It was. I mean, just.
I think
killed
Tressway
it.
should have been in the Pro Bowl last year. I think if it goes the same, he's going to be in the Pro Bowl this year.
I think so too. I saw a headline that we announced him like 5 times at the game. Punting for Washington, Tress Way, number 5, like 5 different times during the game. So at least we have something to be proud of, guys.
And a thing that'll help him too in getting there. I mean, he has to punt it well, but you also have to have a good coverage team. The guys chasing down the field and getting to the or the returner to prevent any actual return yards. You don't want a guy. He could bomb it, say 60-some yards, and then the guy returns it for 20 yards, and that eliminates that. You need a good cover team.
And none
to
of
make
the
punter look
out
good
of the
on
4
paper
punts
too.
that they did, the longest return that Detroit got was 8 yards. So well done, Tress Way.
That's good.
And we'll see how the special teams goes. I mean, like we pointed out earlier, we were supposed to have Niles Paul and Adam Hayward being our 2 studs on special teams, and they're both gone for the year. So somebody else is going to have to step up.
Yeah, well, let's, I don't know, maybe we should run through some concluding thoughts about this game before we wrap it up. I just got to say for my piece, the jury's still out, in my opinion, on a lot of stuff. We talked about a lot today. Joe Barry, I just don't know quite what to think about him. It seemed solid, but that could be a result of just our defense improving so much on paper with the personnel we picked up. So I'm just not sure. The quarterback thing is discouraging, and it's really hard for me to gauge, Kirk Cousins and Colt McCoy necessarily, considering who they're playing with and against. But one thing is for sure, what we've seen out of the first-team offense through 2 preseason games has not been anything to knock you out of your chair. So I think this next game is going to be really interesting. I mean, obviously we're going to do a game preview, but historically this is the one where the starters get the most playing time. So we shall see. For the time being, Griffin's injury is not considered serious, so he should be slotted to start. So we shall see a week from now how that all pans out.
So my concluding thoughts: this is the preseason. The coaches are largely calling plays on offense and defense that allow them to put the players in a position to answer questions that the coaches have about the players. Their goal is to figure out who the final 53 are going to be. So they're putting people in specific situations to see how they perform. So I wouldn't read too much into the play calling or too much into the into the results of the game. I'm not a big fan of the preseason. I think it's kind of a waste of time. If all of the teams didn't have preseason, they would all start out equally unprepared, and it would be a level playing field. That being said, I think that the Redskins are by and large playing well outside of the O-line having a terrible game with Detroit.
I've got 2 thoughts. Is number 1, give Robert Griffin a chance, people, please. We're in preseason game 2. Let's at least get to the regular season before we start calling for his head. He looked good last week. No, this week didn't go well, but let's at least get to the regular season, for God's sakes. And the other thing, I've got 2 more things. We didn't mention Chris Thompson. I'll just throw that out there. Chris Thompson looked really good this week. I thought he's looked like an NFL running back for the first time, so that's good. And the other thing, I would like to make a plea to the Grim Reaper. Okay, the Grim Reaper is out there. He was hovering over Richmond, Virginia. Now he's hovering over Ashburn. Please, Mr. Reaper, leave us alone. We've lost enough players. So far we have an injury list as long as my arm. So I'd like to make a plea to the Grim Reaper to stop taking our players from us. For God's sakes, please, let's get through the rest of the season, the rest of the preseason with no other.
Happily sacrifice a backup quarterback to earn the pleasure of the Grim Reaper. Or Larip, yeah.
Or Josh Laribus.
Well, Mr. Reaper, we will offer up Josh Laribus as a sacrifice if you will leave us alone. Take him. Take it, take his knee, take something.
Do what you will.
But yeah, do what you will with him and leave us alone because we've suffered enough.
All right, that's obvious. I'll conclude saying, watch out for my boy Ty Nsekhe to be the new swing tackle, filling in for Trent Williams when he's out. The whole second half of the third quarter through the fourth, he was in at left tackle when Willie Smith was taken out. When Nsekhe, pretty much the whole camp up to that point, had been exclusively a right tackle. I really feel like I'm the only person talking about him. No one else.
Yeah, you're right. I've seen a couple mentions, but just in passing.
Yeah, everything I've seen from him in camp and in preseason has been solid. He's a big, massive guy playing with good technique. He has good film, and I think Bill Callahan is catching on to that and going to give him the chance to take over that swing tackle role. And so keep your eyes out
Robbie,
for that
do you
next
think that
week.
if Williams has to sit next week, that Nsekhe starts in place of Willie Smith?
I think so, yeah.
After this
I
performance.
think so, yeah. And
how could you let Smith start again?
Yeah,
after
they make funny decisions sometimes in preseason.
That is the truth.
Yeah.
And I'll say this too. People talk about why wasn't Tom Compton in at left tackle instead of
in tight end at tight end.
Yeah, but that's also because Compton is the third string right tackle for a reason. I saw him in camp, and you watch him in preseason. He's just not.
Am I
that
right
good.
in thinking that Tom Compton is not a starting left tackle and he's never going to be a starting left tackle, Robbie?
He's not a starting tackle in general. It's just not. It's not. I don't understand. I guess the people are asking for Compton because they know who he is.
He's a familiar
and they don't
name.
know who Ty Nsekhe is. Yeah. He's a familiar name that general fans know, and we're like, well, Tom Compton, where was he?
Can we safely conclude that, Robbie, in your expert opinion, Tom Compton? Let me ask this: in your expert opinion, is Tom Compton someone who deserves to be on the 53-man roster?
I think he's someone that deserves to be on the 53-man roster because he's versatile. He plays guard, he plays tackle, he can be a guy. Yeah, jack of all trades, master of none.
Tight end, you name it.
No, but I do think coaches appreciate his versatility. I think that's what's going to get him on this team if he does make it. But I think Ty Nsekhe is a better tackle than him. He's stronger. He mauls people in the running game. He's a brick wall in the passing game at blocking. So I think he's definitely been working his way up and
There you
will
have it from
continue
Robbie.
to do so.
His nickname is now Tom Incompetent.
I think Williams, by the way, Trent Williams would have played if that had been a regular season.
Oh,
game.
yeah.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, he said so himself, too.
He doesn't care
It's
about
just,
anything. Season's over, lost. There's no way we're making the playoffs. He should be on the injured reserve list, but he's out there starting and dragging his body around the field. That guy will play through anything.
Yeah.
Honestly, I hope that Alfred Morris doesn't play another down this preseason. I hope that Deshaun Jackson maybe plays one series.
It'd be nice to see him out there.
Yeah, I think I'd like to see him out there.
Yeah.
But some of these guys, considering the amount of injuries we've had, I think they need to be parked squarely on the bench. Williams is not one of them because we need to make sure Griffin doesn't get killed.
Yeah, at some point we're going to lose somebody who's critical.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in closing for me, I'm going to say, Ty Nsekhe, if you're hearing this, I see you.
And we know you're hearing
Keep doing
I
your
hope
thing.
Ty Nsekhe. Yeah, I hope he is hearing this.
Well, let's see. Next week's going to be quite a test. Baltimore's a tough team, and I believe that contract money for Griffin is guaranteed in the case, for injury. So this is very important. Get him some effing protection, and let's make it through this season.
It's guaranteed if he gets injured to the point where he cannot play next year.
Which could happen. I mean, it could happen.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, so
The writing's on the
hopefully
wall.
they can figure something out there. We will see you back here in a week for our next game recap, talk about the Browns game, and in the meantime, make sure you're checking out our game previews at the beginning of the week. Come to our website, thehogsty.com, and click on the Blogsty for all of our written takes, and follow us on Twitter for all the breaking news at the Hogsty. This was the show, and we will see you next time. Bye.